Assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome to the Muslim Game Changers podcast, where we bring you inspiring stories from the best and brightest of the Muslim world. I'm your Hussain, and I'm very excited to take you on a journey of discovery featuring high-profile Muslim leaders from all around the globe. Welcome back to the Muslim Game Changer podcast. Honestly, guys, delighted to have just released the first episode of the first season. At the moment I'm speaking with you, and I know it's the second season already. Honestly, super grateful for the overwhelming support I have received. I have seen the metrics. People have been listening from every continent, like from New Zealand to Canada to India. Honestly, super grateful for everyone, and I'm really excited about this one. Today we're joined by Awais Hussain, a management consultant at PwC UK with already 6 years of experience. What makes our brother truly unique, and I think you're going to relate to his story a lot, is his journey being from a low socioeconomic background to being accepted in the PwC graduate program. His story adds a valuable perspective to discussions on social mobility, but also economic development. A few side notes, because I like to put sometimes little fun facts. Awais loves squash, hiking in the countryside. We all know in the UK, the countryside is absolutely beautiful, and exploring coffee shops with a little book in hand. Assalamu alaikum, Awais. How are you doing today?
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you for the introduction, Shaheen. I'm good, alhamdulillah. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, so good. Honestly, brother, so grateful for your time. I know you're very busy, etc. So you love books. So do I. Do you have any book that really was memorable for you? And you cannot say the Qur'an. I know this might be the easy answer, but any book which was memorable for you that you would like to share with us?
I think one of the first books that I read, one of the Islamic books that really resonated with me is Revive Your Heart by Noman Ali Khan. It's a beautiful book. Honestly, it's something I really recommend. It really helps you with your personal development as well as professional development as well. It just really brings you back to your purpose. So I definitely recommend Revive Your Heart.
Excellent, very good. Noman Ali Khan, one of my favorite scholars also.
Yes.
Awais, I know you a little bit, but people do not know you. We want to get to know you in this podcast, in this episode. Can you share with us where were you born and where are you currently based, and what was the journey from one place to the other?
Of course, yes. So my name's Awais. As you know, I'm from Bradford in the north of England. I was born in Bradford as well. I come from a Pakistani background, and I really started my journey off as an apprentice. So I completed what we call A-levels in the UK just before you go to university. I took a non-traditional route. So I didn't actually go to university at the age of 18, just because no one in my family had been to university. My parents never went. And I didn't really know that many people at university. So that was just a difficult decision in itself. Just even financially, I thought that the best route would be just to go straight into work. And I found a great apprenticeship at PwC that I was very lucky to get onto at the age of 18. And that's something that, I really recommend to people in the UK if they know about them. Higher apprenticeships, they're amazing. So I did that for about just over 2 years. I worked in their external audit department. It was a huge culture shock to begin with, working in the corporate sector, but I learned so much on that 2-year program. And then I decided that I think I really wanted an academic degree. So I really wanted to go down a degree route. So I decided to leave PwC at the time. I was just kind of finding myself, really. I think at the time it was just before the pandemic, and I was just sort of deciding what to do with my life and where I want to take my career as well. So I thought, let me go back to university. So I went and started a degree in Islamic and Middle Eastern studies, something completely different.
Amazing.
Yeah, something completely different to finance. And I'd already had my qualifications in accounting and finance. So I thought, I'm going to do something that's really going to boost my interest in Islam and allow me to develop that side of things, but also something that will support me with my future career as well. Because I know a lot of graduate schemes out there, they allow you to get onto them without any, specific subject. So I went to study something I really enjoy, and honestly, I really loved that degree. I was supposed to go on a year abroad in Jordan, but due to the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, that got cancelled. Yeah, exactly. But also, I was still working full time. So I worked for a short time in a bank. I also worked for the civil service, and I was sort of working all the time, mostly full time, whilst I was studying my degree full time. So that was a challenge, but it's something that I really needed to do personally as well, just to support my family, etc. So yeah, that was important for me. And then last year I graduated, and obviously with all the 5 years experience I had, I decided I want to go down the consulting route. I felt like I was a people's person. I really enjoyed solving problems. I thought it's a great route for me to go into. So I started last year in the consulting grad scheme in management consulting at PwC. And yeah, I'm still here.
Very good. I didn't think this was possible to actually land a graduate program without following the academic route. I'm super surprised and super happy about it, that people have a chance, because in France, for instance, and I believe some countries like, for instance, Switzerland also, without having an academic background, people have no chance. Some people are super talented. They could do amazing. And we missed out on those brilliant people.
Yes.
How did you feel like landing in such a graduate program without having that background? Did you feel that you had to prove more to people, or did you have any sort of super confidence in yourself? You told yourself, I'm going to learn way faster than the others because I'm more hungry than all the others.
Look, from a young age, I always had this admiration for people that were really in leadership positions. That really inspired me. And I thought, I don't know anyone in my personal life that has achieved such a high position, someone like a CEO, for example, of a company. And I always looked into these big companies, and I was always doing research and looking at their financials. And I thought, why can I not become one of those one day? Why can I not be a CEO of a huge company?
Very good.
And I remember I tell my family and friends this, and Bradford, where I come from, the community it's an amazing community. So, we have a large Muslim population, huge Pakistani, Bangladeshi, Indian community as well. So you have that great community aspect here. But there's also that side of things where you feel like you're kind of stuck in a bubble as well, because you don't know that many people that have really achieved those kind of goals and ambitions of, moving out of their city and traveling and getting to experience this corporate career. So it was a huge challenge for me. I know when I was 18, I went into PwC kind of naive and not really knowing what to expect. And there were people there coming from, very privileged backgrounds, they went to private schools, and had studied, high academic degrees at master's level. I met people who came from Oxford and Cambridge. So, for me, that was a big challenge, trying to get to understand the culture itself. So, I really just was being my authentic self from the beginning, really. And I'm not saying that there wasn't challenges along the way, being Muslim, being Pakistani, coming from, a low socioeconomic background like Bradford, not having the experiences that other people have had. It made me feel like maybe, I'm not good enough to be here at times.
Oh.
And I did feel that, yeah, definitely. I felt that a lot of times. And it was hard because I didn't have people to relate to as much. And, eventually, alhamdulillah, I kind of met more Muslims within PwC as well. We've built a really strong Muslim community here at PwC. So now I think, mashallah, there's over 1,000 people as part of the PwC Muslim network. So we've built that from, just 5 years ago, and it's really going strong. And I think it's supporting a lot of Muslims, Pakistanis, people from different ethnic backgrounds to come together and really relate to the kind of challenges they've had. So that's been really, really helpful. And I think going into consulting as well, it's all about people skills, and it's all about working with different kinds of people. And I think we are looking for a more diverse skill set within consulting. You need that. You work with clients who are international now. And if you just have the same kind of people, or even if you have just males, for example, on a team, it's not very diverse in that sense of relating to the clients that we work with. So we need to have a diverse team to support our clients with solving their problems, really. It's been a challenge, but we've got there, and I think I've still got so much more to learn.
That's very good to share this with us. Brother, I can relate to a part of your story. You will tell me what you think about it. But for instance, I was born in an area called the 93. It's the poorest area of France, okay? And people, when they apply, and the employers in the French big companies, they see that you have the 93 on your resume, you lose 80% of chance of landing the job.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I was wondering if Bradford, maybe it had that image on. I don't know anything about Bradford. Maybe it could be interesting also to share a bit about the environment the socio-economic context of Bradford? Is this an industrial city, or what kind of city is Bradford?
Yeah, so Bradford, very similar to what you explained, is at the height of the Industrial Revolution in the UK. So if you go back, a century, it was a booming city. It had the wool industry, it had manufacturing industries, and it was really, really booming at that time. And I think as we progressed, that industry sort of declined, and then a lot of people obviously came over from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. They came to these industrial cities to find jobs in factories like my grandparents. And eventually it sort of declined. So it was sort of like there was these big families here from other countries. They were trying to sort of fit into a community, trying to get into the education environment as well, get their children into the best schools, for example, get them into university. And they'd not had this experience. My grandparents, and I'm sure other people can relate, they didn't really have that education background, coming from Pakistan, India, Bangladesh. So eventually, I think people sort of started going into schools, but then there was this reputation about Bradford, and I think it's still in the news where, sometimes it's known as Europe's most dangerous city. It's got this reputation of having one of the highest crime rates in the UK.
No way.
Yeah. So it's got this reputation, yes. And I believe we have one of the youngest population in Europe as well, actually. So we have a very high population of, I think, 16 to 29-year-olds. So we have a very large population of young people here. And a lot of those young people are, unfortunately, they're being left behind. There's something called the North-South divide in the UK, where a lot of the budgets from the government, they tend to go towards the south more in the southern, districts. So the north of England is sort of kind of left behind, and Bradford falls under that.
Oh.
Yeah. So unfortunately, there is that case where we have limited budgets here to spend on young people, allowing them to find new skills, allowing them to flourish in their education. So unfortunately, we do have a big challenge here in Bradford, particularly. But I think it's an amazing city, honestly. I'm really proud of coming from here, and I think we have a lot of potential. It's just, unfortunately, we're in that case where, it is known as that city. There's not a lot of chances or not a lot of potential to succeed. So people moved out long time ago, and now there's that case where there's not a lot of bigger companies that are basing their offices around here. People don't really know what's out there for them in terms of their potential. So there's some really intelligent people here who are not really fulfilling their potential that they can.
I appreciate so much the fact that you're proud of where you are from. Certain people, sometimes they succeed in life and they're ashamed to come from a city, which, for instance, me, I'm very proud to say, like you, and I have a common point with you. I'm very proud to say I'm from the 93, because even though there's crime rate, etc., I want to let them know that there are people who actually made it in life and who are from that part of the country. So I break their stereotype. Awais, my brother. In France, the economy is really concentrated into Paris. Everything is in Paris. The jobs, everything are in Paris. If you want to have a job, you need to work in Paris. I ignore what's the state of the UK. Is it as concentrated as in France? Everything is in London, and either you work in London or either you cannot be competitive. And for instance, you were talking about the leadership people who inspire you. Do you feel that you have the shot in Bradford? Do you feel that, for instance, other cities, Birmingham, Newcastle, Manchester, etc., do you feel that these other towns, you can also make it big, not as big as London, but you can make a very decent living?
So I actually started working in London as part of my consulting grad scheme. And seriously, I think I felt like I learned a lot more than if I was just in Bradford or the surrounding areas in the north. I think I definitely got access to a lot more networks in terms of the people, the partners at PwC that I met. A lot of the events that take place, a lot of them do take place in London, not in the regions. So there is that concentration similar to Paris, that London has all the opportunities. So I think having that experience has helped me to become more confident, has helped me to learn more technical skills as well for my consulting role. In terms of making it big, for example, in Bradford, I definitely think someone would have to venture out a bit more, just travel, get that experience and learn a bit more about what's out there, what kind of other people, different kinds of people you can meet who can support you on your journey, because they're not all going to be in Bradford or in your local area. Fortunately, that is the case. There's something that I read recently, an article about the UK having one of the poorest rates of social mobility actually in the developed world. Yeah, in the developed world. So it just means that people like myself, born into low income families, And irrespective of their talent or their, the hard work, they don't have the same access to opportunities. So as people who are born in privileged circumstances, for example, so that's more concentrated in the South. That's more based around London. And there is an element of nepotism. So people who know or have contacts will be able to get access to these firms or get access to the top jobs. And it's the same across a lot of industries, not just in consulting. So I think the only way we can do that is if we do travel and we do get out there, we be presentable, we immerse ourselves in these environments and show that there's real talent also in the regions. That way companies will see that, why not have our office in Bradford? And I'm saying this about consulting, but PwC have recently opened an office in Bradford a couple of years ago. And I think that was an amazing move. They're one of the biggest companies now in Bradford. And I think they did that as part of their social mobility campaign. I was part of that campaign as well. I was quite heavily involved in, the recruitment aspect and getting local people from Bradford working for PwC. I think if more companies make that move, we will get more opportunities in places like Bradford.
Hats off to PwC. Good job, guys. Honestly, very good. And I'm sure maybe the brothers at PwC, at the PwC network, maybe they played some kind of role in trying to push for this. I don't know, maybe. But this is great. There's a younger brother which reached out to me and he said in his poor area, almost no one has made it in terms of higher studies. And this is something I want you to see. How is it like in the rest of the world? In Bradford, among your friends, the people you have grew up with, the people who were in your previous classrooms, do you feel that a lot of people have now senior positions or work in very big companies, etc.? Do you feel that you are the exception? Or there are still many people? Because you were telling me that Bradford has a lot of potential with people very young and also people who are very intelligent. I just want to see what's the end result. Is it showing up?
Well, people do say to me that I am an exception. My friends tell me the same, that, we don't really know anyone who's gone out there, gone into London, working for such a huge firm. So many people haven't even heard of PwC and similar kind of firms. So it maybe just shows that I think that awareness, that lack of awareness, people don't really know that what's out there for them. They don't really know the names of these companies, and then they won't know what kind of roles are out there. And I think I did take it upon myself to do a lot of research. And, I put myself in situations that I wasn't comfortable with. I took myself out of my comfort zone, whereas a lot of people, I think, are very comfortable in Bradford. They would be happy with, just finding a job here. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. And I think it's amazing that people are still working and trying to do as much as they can. But people don't really see their own potential. And that's really sad to see. And I do a lot of volunteering in schools in the local community now, just to see the situation for myself. And it is the case that I think because their parents don't understand what kinds of roles are out there, they're relying on the schools to teach them. And then the schools don't have enough budgets, or they can't give them enough experience to see what's out there for their students. They have a lack of skills and they find it more difficult to navigate and understand what's out in the job market. I guess that's where we need to be able to work more towards upskilling in places like Bradford, so that the young people can see and understand what's their potential, but also what kinds of opportunities are out there for them. I guess I just really did take it upon myself, as I said. I took out the research. I built a LinkedIn from the age of 17. So many of my friends similar age to me, they don't even use LinkedIn. They don't know what it's used for. So it's these type of skills that we need to really foster.
Very good. People who are in their 15, 16, 17, some which are in uni, I advise build a LinkedIn straight. And as soon as you get the opportunity to have a little internship, the big consulting firms, the big investment banking firms also, when managers, senior people are living for their summer break, there is a less activity in the business, but there is also a lot of positions which are, let's say, in brackets, unfilled. They offer a lot of summer internships to the youth, even with no experience. And this is a brilliant way to get yourself in the door, actually learn some basic things for 2 months. It won't pay as much as a real job, but you will begin to build your resume as soon as possible. So that's very important. I just wanted to say this. And secondly, Awais, I wanted to know, this is a question which I think people have remarked, that you have a little accent, which reminds us of the Peaky Blinders, let's face it. a TV show that I absolutely love. So I love Tommy Shelby, etc. Anyway, for people who might recognize. So I wanted to know, in France, based on the way you talk, I'm not going to talk about the accent because we don't have much here. We have only 2 accents, but depending on the way you talk, people are going to judge you in a different way. For instance, if I talk in a very posh French register of language, LVMH, etc., they're going to see me as one of their own.
Yeah.
But I wanted to know if in the UK, I have seen people speaking with a very posh accent in London, etc., very fancy. It's beautiful to hear, I'm not going to lie. But I just want to know if there's any type of discrimination based on the way you speak, your accent, if you have a Scottish accent, if you have, I don't know, any accent, one from Edinburgh, one from Newcastle, etc. Any type of judgment, do you feel that your chances are reduced?
That's a really interesting question. What I'd say is on Peaky Blinders, actually, that's a Birmingham accent. So I'm not from Birmingham, but I mean, I guess I can understand if people from other countries will, make it seem like it sounds similar, the Bradford accent to the Peaky Blinders show. But I completely understand. I mean, in the UK, actually this formal or posh English, what we call received pronunciation, it's not actually common. It's not the common way of speaking in the UK. Every city that you will go to in the UK will have their own dialect and own way of speaking. They'll have their own vocabulary. And it does show that there's a lot of diversity in terms of the way people speak in the UK. And when you do go down to London, it does seem like that people are speaking a lot more formally. But I guess in terms of the discrimination, from a personal point of view, I have personally received sometimes feedback that I do speak a bit too informally, or I'm a bit too calm on the way I speak, and maybe I need to speak a bit more formally when it comes to speaking to clients, for example. And, I've tried to take that on board as much as I can, really, just to pick up on my vocabulary, learn what we call big words a bit more. So I'm able to sort of clarify and explain myself in a situation that's more formal. And I think that in that sense, if you are going into an interview and you're speaking a bit more informally, or it seems like you're speaking informally because of your accent, I think that will get picked up in interviews. I don't know whether, that will be discriminated against, or whether people will take on someone else who speaks a bit more formally, but it does make a difference. With your friends and family, there is a way of speaking with slang, and, you can speak a bit more informally. But when it comes to those kind of situations, I think you do need to be a bit more prepared and be really understanding of the person and how they perceive you. Because if they perceive you in a way that they expect you to work, for example, in a working environment, they want to see how you're going to be in that surrounding and how you're going to be in their environment. So I guess if everyone is on the same sort of level playing field in terms of the vocabulary, and trying to speak in a way that is just formal, not sort of formal English in the sense of posh English, but formal in the way that you're clarifying yourself more formally. In discrimination, it can happen. And I think that is another, unfortunate thing, that people are discriminating against the way you speak. But people, I think they just need to kind of be a bit more understanding and realize and come to terms with the fact that people do speak differently, and there's diversity in language and the way that people speak English even.
Yeah, very good. Brother Awais, I wanted to know, because you told us there is a massive population of Muslims in Bradford, and alhamdulillah for this.
Alhamdulillah.
Can you tell us what has been your experience living as a Muslim in Bradford? And also another question, how do you balance your career with your personal faith? Do you find time to go to Jumu'ah, to do your prayers? People want to see what it's like, being a working professional. Will I have as much time as I do when I'm in uni, when I'm younger, etc.?
Starting on, I guess, my experience in Bradford, alhamdulillah, like I've had one of the best experiences as a Muslim growing up. I think although you can have that toxic side of the culture that comes in, if you do take it upon yourself to learn about Islam and try to find the right type of company and make use of the masjids and the madrasas that are in Bradford that I attend, you can learn so much and you can gain so much knowledge. And as long as you take that upon yourself, you won't have any problems. And also just the experience of, finding halal meat, and everything is pretty much halal in Bradford. That's not a problem. So alhamdulillah, that's been, really, really great. And growing up, that's when, when I sort of traveled out, I'd go to other cities. I went to America, and I was in Europe as well. And I realized that actually I've got it very lucky in Bradford. And there's Muslims who are in other countries, other cities, who, are facing a lot more challenges and barriers in terms of even just living in their community and going out to work and facing these, challenges on a daily basis. So in that sense, I do feel really, really lucky, alhamdulillah. But, when I started working, I guess when you go to work and a lot of the people that you work with will be non-Muslim, and it's trying to understand how you're going to explain sort of certain situations. For example, praying 5 times a day. How do you explain that when you go into a work situation? Or how do you explain that I need to be aware on a Friday at Jummah time, and especially Ramadan as well? So, going in, I think when I was 18, I was quite a shy young boy. I was very scared to ask for a place to pray or trying to ask for flexible time off. And to begin with, I was always very shy. I didn't know how to explain. If I was in a big team and I was the only Muslim, I'd find it really difficult to say, okay, I need to go pray. And I used to hide it a lot of the time. So I'd try to go as much as I can on my breaks, but I wouldn't tell them or speak to them about my faith. And I think if you don't speak about it, people are not going to know. And eventually, I think as we grew the Muslim network as well, I realized that there's nothing wrong with speaking about your faith in informal conversations with non-Muslims. And actually, what you'll find is people are genuinely interested to learn more. And, you'll get the questions like, oh, so you can't even drink water, in Ramadan and things like that. But you know what? In a corporate environment, people are so intelligent. They come from these academic backgrounds. They've been to university. Some of them studied in different countries, and they're happy to learn more. And they want to seek knowledge and they want to understand. And I think what comes in the media and what represents Islam is actually far from it. And it's actually the interactions that you have with people. And if they have a good interaction with a Muslim at work, they'll be able to tell other people, okay, I work with a Muslim person and it's not this way, or it's not the way that it's represented in the news. So I did have those challenges personally, but I think when I just started speaking about, okay, I need to pray at this time and I hope this is okay. And alhamdulillah, most of the experiences that I've had at work, both at PwC and other places, I've had that flexibility to be able to take time off for going out to pray and going pray Jummah as well. So I've not really had that many issues in that sense. And people, my teams have been really, really, welcoming to shift things around for me as well, which has been really, really pleasing to see. So I think, alhamdulillah, it's been a good experience. And as long as you just speak about it, you just have open communication with your teams. That's all I can say, really.
Awais, I wanted to talk about representation. When I was in business school, the city was full of Arabic and black people in my city. And when I landed in business school, there were only white people. I wanted to know if Bradford, which is a very multicultural, very diverse, I suppose, there are Somalians, Bengalis, Indians, Pakistanis. When you got the office at PwC, do you see that diversity?
Unfortunately, not. I'd say there's still a lot more work to do in terms of diversity across PwC and across, I think, so many other companies, including because I had experience at civil service in one of their departments in the UK. And even there as well, when you look at the senior leadership teams, only now are we starting to see more female senior leadership. But in terms of the ethnic minorities, Pakistanis, Arab, people from a black background, you don't see many people in the senior leadership positions. And that's where it becomes really challenging, because you want to see people who are more like you in those positions, to then be able to have a goal and to say, okay, I know that person who's done this and I can do the same. So there is a few people, I've met people in the London office. There's a couple in Leeds, partners who I've met from the Asian community, but not as many as you want to see. And I think when you go into that office environment, and there is sometimes where you get a comfort feeling where you want to be around people that you're comfortable with. And I think there's nothing wrong with that sometimes, because everyone has their comfort zone, and sometimes you do want to be in that comfort zone. But of course, understanding where there's times that you need to step out of that comfort zone too. But it is nice when you have people like yourself who come from a similar background to you, and seeing those people in the office on a day-to-day basis, it just makes work a lot easier, because if there's sort of a challenge that comes up, for example, you can gather people's experiences and you can understand what their perspectives are of the same problem, and you can bring that together and you can raise it then together as a group rather than an individual. So as a collective sort of issue that's concerning more people. So I think at the moment, I think it's going to take a long time. Hopefully in the next few years, we do get to see a lot more diversity in terms of senior leadership. But I guess from the graduate program or the graduate perspective, I am starting to see a lot more people from ethnic minority backgrounds, black backgrounds. You are getting to see a bit more of that now.
Inshallah. Honestly, love this, brother. I love how you formulated your whole arguments. Love this, by the way. I wanted to know, Awais, what inspired you to pursue a career in consulting? It's a field where you told me you were not aware of. You did not receive an education. And me also, I was not aware of anything that I had no idea what's consulting. So what inspired you at that time to go in consulting?
So initially, when I started my apprenticeship program in auditing, I was starting that at the age of 18. That was the only kind of route I knew about because you would expect accounting and auditing to be kind of same. So I knew about becoming an accountant, but I didn't really know about any other departments within PwC, but also anything else that was out there. And it's when I joined, I realized that, wow, there's actually so many other teams here. So I was sort of meeting other people, and a lot of people at me, and I'd say, oh, are you in audit? Are you an accountant? And they'd say, no, I'm a consultant, or I work in tax, or I work in technology. And that's when you start to see, oh, there's actually so much more out there than you kind of perceive and you expect. And then I realized, like, oh, I don't actually want to be an accountant. I just went for that because I thought it's the easiest option. It's the only option I knew at the time. But there's actually a lot more out there. And that's when I started to ask questions. The basic things as going for coffee catch-ups with people, and really recommend that. People are more than happy to have a coffee catch-up on LinkedIn, where you work as well. And if you find that the particular role that you're interested in, you want to learn more about that role, just go and ask people, because they will be able to give you more about their experience, tell you how they got there as well. So I just started to do that, and I kind of realized that consulting is something that involves a lot of interaction with people. It involves a lot more creativity, and no 2 days are the same. And I thought this is something that's more personal to me. And I think I'm kind of a lot more creative. I solve problems in very unique ways. I ask a lot of questions, and I think that's what consulting comes down to, really. It's all about the people skills. You can have the technical skills, but if you don't have good client interactions, it's not going to be a successful relationship in consultancy. So you need to have both sides, I guess, and you're always learning in consulting as well. So there's always something new that you're going to be doing. That's when I sort of heard more about consulting, and then tried to find out the best routes to get in. Eventually I could have become an accountant and could have maybe tried to transfer internally into consulting, but I didn't know if that was going to be a guaranteed route for me. So that's why I decided to go to university and then apply for the graduate position. So that's how I kind of learned more about consulting. I only knew about Big Four consulting at the time. So Big Four, for anyone who doesn't know, is the PwC, KPMG, Deloitte, and EY. So they're the Big Four, known as the Big Four accounting firms, but they also offer, the consulting services, tax, and sort of other specialist services as well for companies and governments. But recently, about a year ago, is when I sort of heard about the Big Three and the Big Three consulting firms. So I heard about McKinsey, Boston Consulting Group, and Bain and Company as well. And at that time, when I was applying for the graduate programs, I was only really applying for the Big Four. And I never knew that there was a Big Three. There were bigger consulting firms out there. And that's when I sort of learned more about strategy consulting. And I was sort of thinking, oh, there's so many different avenues out there I could have pursued. But alhamdulillah, I'm really grateful for where I am, because a lot of people do apply for the graduate scheme in consulting, especially at PwC, and not a lot of people do get in. The percentage is quite low. So I think I've done quite well to get in for myself, alhamdulillah. So wherever my career takes me next, we shall see, inshallah.
Inshallah, my brother. Honestly, alhamdulillah. When did you actually get to know the graduate program? How did you prepare for this? If you could give a few tips to our brothers and sisters, this would be amazing.
Definitely. So I applied for a number of grad schemes, mostly in consulting and a few other areas as well. And I'm not going to lie, I got rejections. I got loads of rejections as well. And I think the kind of advantage that I had was that I had experience working at PwC before, and I kind of understood the kind of industry that PwC works in, what their sort of future goals are, understanding aspects such as sustainability, ESG, what their D&I initiatives, diversity and inclusion initiatives are. And these kinds of things are very particular to companies. So each company will have its own sort of set way of doing things, and they'll have their own strategic plan. So I was quite lucky in the sense that I was always in touch with PwC. I didn't leave until I was sort of in my second year at university. So I was still fairly familiar with everything in terms of how they work, their departments, the services they offer. So that really helped me in terms of the grad scheme and the interviews. But for someone who doesn't have experience, the best place to go is just to go onto their website and have a look at what kinds of things they kind of up to, what kinds of clients they've worked with quite recently, what kinds of solutions they've provided. And when you mention these kinds of things in interviews, they really like to see that you've done your research and you've kind of seen the kind of problems that, for example, PwC are solving for clients in particular. And if you're mentioning a specific aspect, so for example, if you think about climate change, it's a huge topic right now. And if they've worked with a specific client to solve their supply chain, for example, and making it more sustainable for the longer term, and if you've seen that on their website and you've read into that particular case study, for example, you'll be able to mention that in the interview, and you'll be able to understand a bit more about how they work as a company. So these kinds of tips are really, really helpful. Something else that really helped me was just asking people who have already been on the grad scheme. And I think that's where LinkedIn comes in. I had a bit of my network previously at PwC, but I also just reached out to people on LinkedIn, people who are already working in the areas that I was interested in. So I was particularly interested in government consulting. So I'd reach out to people, just do a search, PwC consulting, government, and there would be numerous people who'd come up, and not just people based in the UK, but globally. And everyone will have their own sort of experience of how they got into the firm, and they can all provide so much really, really great advice. So I'd have catch-ups with people, and a lot of those people are now my informal mentors, I'd say. So just kind of reaching out to people as well is really helpful when it comes to graduate programs. But, don't fear if you get a rejection. Just realize the experience you've gained from that, because every time you do an interview, the next interview, you're going to get better at that. You're going to be able to have a much more productive conversation with the interviewer, and also just practicing online as well. When it comes to consulting in particular, a lot of it is down to case studies and sort of problem solving skills. So you can find a lot of case studies online, practices, and even specifically, for example, BCG's website, they have great case studies.
Yeah, very good.
Exactly. So there's so much out there, and there's a lot of free programs that you can do as well, which I can recommend at the end of this podcast. I can recommend something specifically for people in the UK, but also for people abroad who are interested in consulting.
Absolutely love this. Honestly, you have won my heart, brother. So much insights, straight to the point. I feel so grateful for everyone who's partaken in this project, giving like concrete advice. I would have loved when I was younger, and I think you can maybe relate to what I'm about to say. I would have loved to hear you 10 years ago. I would have just loved it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And our brother is just telling this in a podcast. This is, I love this.
I didn't have this as well. Exactly. When I was in school, I didn't really have anyone to tell me how to apply for a job, how to be, in an interview, how to have these soft skills as well. I was really shy, particularly. I'm quite introverted actually in real life. So these kind of skills were really essential for me, especially in a consulting role, to be able to develop. And I'm not saying I'm perfected it. No way have I perfected it. And you're always going to be on that learning journey. And I guess there's so much you can learn from people. Honestly, speak to people, get to know their experience, and learn from others, because it's the best way, honestly.
God bless you. May Allah reward you, Awais. And I just wanted to say that a lot of people are introvert and they come in my podcast. May Allah reward you guys. Honestly, I can feel the effort you're doing. But I wanted to know, because it's a very important question. I have interviewed a lot of consultants, so I'm sorry to ask a bit exotic questions, let's say, but these are very important ones because I nourish them from the youth. They ask me questions and I tell them, hey, I'm interviewing a consultant or a management consultant, a tax associate, etc. Let me ask them. They're the experts. I wanted to know, what's your vision? Someone is ambitious, a brother or a sister. They're hesitating between consulting and the tech world. How would you advocate for the consulting piece? There are two brilliant fields to work in. What would you advise them? What would have been your choice also if you had to repeat this path?
So in tech and consulting?
Basically, either, for instance, let us say I'm a youngster and I want to study. I'm at a key part of university. I just achieved my bachelor degree. I want to switch to a master degree. I can maybe envision a path which leads me to being a consultant. For instance, my dream is to work in the Middle East or in London, etc. What's the easiest way for you? Do you think that consulting offers you like international opportunities? You can dream to go in the Middle East, in the States, in Canada, etc. Do you feel that all doors are open? Or do you feel that the tech world, for instance, I'm sure you know a lot of people who work in software development, etc. Do you feel that they have more opportunities, they have more flexibility, etc.? What's your insight on this?
I think especially now after the pandemic, in terms of consulting as well as tech, they both sort of hybrid kind of roles now. So no one's working in an office 5 times a week, especially in the UK. People are working from home. They're spending less time now on client sites. And I think the same with our clients. They're also shifting to that hybrid way of working. So in terms of that aspect of, traveling, etc., I think they're kind of now on a level playing field. And especially when it comes to consulting now, what I'm seeing on projects is a lot of projects are having a tech element to them. So we're bringing in people who are experts in, for example, enterprise architecture or cloud transformations, and people who can really tell us about the nitty gritty of tech and be able to help us design and build for our clients. So they do go hand in hand. And I know people that are tech consultants. So if you're really interested in both areas, why not consider becoming a tech consultant? So your experience is in tech, but you're also a consultant. So you've got both sides.
Excellent.
And that's the beauty of it, really. I think it's the opportunity to try out different areas whilst you're still sort of young. You've still got that drive to try different things out and learn new things before you really specialize and become this expert in a specific area. But I know people who are tech consultants. Their passion is technology, but their passion is people too, and they want to work with clients to solve problems. So you can do both at the same time. But it depends. If you're really, really interested in just tech, why not look into specific startups? A lot of startups have great technologies that they are constantly building upon. And again, you can work for huge companies as well. But I'm sure that both fields will be able to take you abroad. And I feel like I have the opportunity to go abroad. I'm seeing so much interesting work in the Middle East, for example. PwC in particular, we have a close connection with the Middle East firms. So a lot of work is, happening in Saudi. We've got the Al Ula, we've got the Neom, the Line. So these new cities and amazing, sustainable initiatives. So there's a lot of scope. And I think that comes down to both areas. We need people specifically in tech, but we also need consultants as well.
But this was a perfect answer. This was a very tough question on my side and a very good answer, Awais, honestly. What are some platforms that you use to learn? What types of skills should a management consultant learn to stay competitive in the industry?
I'd say if you're starting as a graduate, I'm sure you'll have an amazing induction program to start off with. But then from there, what do you do? Obviously, when you're on projects and you're in a new industry. So, for example, I was working in a completely different industry a couple of months ago. It was in the engineering industry, and I'd come from a government client. So that's a big shift. And you have to get to grasp with that industry quite quickly. And also in terms of the more technical side of, for example, data modeling, we were setting up a data modeling for this client. So how do you learn these skills? And I'm constantly learning, and I'm trying to find, different resources. First off, I'd say the company that you work for, try to find out if there's any specific training courses that you can take part in, because there's always something. I'm attending a financial modeling course in 2 weeks' time in London. It's something that I looked because I was interested in and I'm searching for. But the first place I looked was within PwC itself, because there's people who are experts in that area, so they can help you there. So start off from the beginning, just ask people, do you know anyone who's an expert in this area? Or there's a specific framework that you need to learn, for example, that you need to apply to your project. Do you know someone that can teach me a bit more about this? So I think that's the best place to start. Is the next place, I think, is there's a lot of free online resources that you can find. Coursera is a great website. I use Udemy quite a bit because I was working on a specific public policy project, but it had sort of like an economic aspect to it. And my background is not in economics. So I needed to learn and grasp my skills in economic analysis and that public policy assessment side of things. And I found some great resources on Udemy for that. We do a lot of process improvements in consulting. So we can use different tools and technologies, which you can also learn online. And again, there's YouTube as well. YouTube is obviously always going to be a great way to learn a new skill. So I was looking into something called cost benefits analysis the other day, and I found a great YouTube video which was made by, I think, Harvard. That video really helped me to understand cost benefit analysis and how to apply it on projects as well. Just do your research, I think. And obviously there'll be times when you might want to upskill and get certified in a specific area. So project management qualification, for example, you have Prince 2, you have PMP qualifications. Obviously, first instance, what I'd say is find out if you can get funded by your employer. Hopefully they might be able to, but if it comes to a point where they can't and you think that certification is going to help you in the future. It might be the case that it's worth spending a couple of $100, pounds, whatever, to get that certification. You can seek out those kind of areas as well. What I'd say in terms of certifications in particular, to become more expert in a certain project management qualification, for example. So in terms of that, yeah, I'd say initially start off with your own company or employer that you're working for. Look out online for resources, Udemy, Coursera, they're great places. And then certifications, if there's anything that you think you can learn a bit more about and do a certification on.
You're very precise, and I love the spirit of trying to close the gaps. That curiosity is what's going to make a difference in the business, because once you get a degree, some people are going to stop that learning at this point in time, and others are going to say, oh, sometimes there's a complex discussion, they don't understand anything, they will get out of the room and try to learn about what they have not understood. And that's the spirit. That's how then, after time and time invest in learning, you become a beast.
Exactly. You can't be an expert overnight as well. That's the thing. When I joined with certain people, they wanted to do a lot of things at once. It's just not possible to learn everything at once. So just spend your time in consulting in particular. You're on a project for maybe 3 months, and you'll have a short break in between, what we call being on the bench, for your time to learn. And if you kind of know from your previous project, if there's something you need to upskill on, use that time then. Or if there's something that you're looking for, a specific industry that you want to work in the next project, try to upskill in that area. And you can then seek out those opportunities and mention that you've already looked into this area and I'm aware about this area. But it's not overnight. Don't overwhelm yourself with trying to learn everything as well, because it's just not possible.
Yeah. I have a last question for you. What type of initiatives could be interesting for our community to do more higher studies? What type of initiatives should we do more?
It depends on the grassroots level. I think it depends on the community that you're in and understanding the needs of that particular community. So from a Bradford perspective, I'd say our challenges are in the education sector and young people. We need to work with young people from the ground up to be able to develop and help them with their skills and give them the skills and the knowledge to be able to apply that to interviews, apply that then onto higher education, university, and then hopefully in their employment. So it's giving them the sort of coaching and mentoring from the beginning, really. And I think it depends on each community. They might need more coaching and development at a higher level, for example. So someone who's already a professional who's struggling to navigate in their career, someone might need more help in that area. But also in terms of other initiatives, I guess having a strong sort of community within your employer, but also within the community that you live in, and bringing professionals together from other industries and trying to come together and solve problems that you can all acknowledge that are quite important to you. I know of communities that have come together to bring lawyers and accountants and consultants together in one room, and each one will have a unique way of applying or solving a problem. So each one would be able to bring a different skill set. So I think that's quite important if we try to start things from a grassroots level, from a community level, work our way up, and then we'll be able to hopefully see those changes and we'll be able to evaluate and monitor what the impact is of that.
It is true that I said last question, but there is one thing that I want to ask you. I'm being cheeky here, but is there anything, any project or initiative that you're thinking of starting or you're excited about, you would like to share with our listeners? This can be anything, maybe your personal life, your professional life.
Of course, yeah. I'm actually working on hopefully we'll be starting a project for the next 6 months in Bradford, inshallah. So it's going to support female-led and female-serving social enterprises and businesses.
Amazing.
Yes, in the Bradford community. So it's going to be able to, hopefully, we're going to develop masterclasses for them. We're going to be running and developing masterclasses, bringing together experts in different areas, for example, in finance, in business modeling, for example, or marketing, and bringing those people together to develop masterclasses for these enterprises to grow and develop in the shorter term rather than looking so far ahead. So helping them grow in a more rapid pace and giving them access to mentors as well. So we're working on this program at the moment, and it should hopefully be launching next month. We're at the stage where we're trying to select organizations right now and looking at the type of organizations that are in Bradford and these enterprises in particular that are having a big impact in the Bradford area and who are supporting the community, who are having a local impact in terms of social and economic development as well. So that's the project that I'm really excited to be working on for the next 6 months, alongside obviously any other projects. But this is something that's quite close to my heart because it's in Bradford, it's supporting local people and local businesses to thrive.
Honestly, sounds super exciting. And thank you for what you do for the community. I just on behalf, thank you. I love seeing people like start initiatives. So just thank you very much, brother. And the people from Bradford, I know you're going to share this with your network. So go show Awais some love. Thank you, Awais. Hey, by the way,
Jazakallah.
This is a little moment that I've tried to save because there's something important happening in France. I always felt a duty to speak up for people who are oppressed, etc. And France has banned abaya. I don't know if you saw it, Awais.
Yes, I do see.
Honestly, France, every time we think as French Muslims, they cannot do worse, they amaze us again. So I just wanted to share with the audience something. And I know the French audience is my number one audience just after the Pakistani one. I just wanted to share a little quote from Frantz Fanon, which fought for the independence of Algeria. He said, "The woman who sees without being seen frustrates the colonizer. There is no reciprocity. She does not yield herself, does not give herself, does not offer herself." So I just wanted to shout out all my sisters in France. God bless you all. I know this must be so hard for you all. And inshallah, I will bring more sisters here on the show to try to inspire you. But I just wanted to say that I stand with you guys. Stay strong. Sorry to break a bit the atmosphere, but I think I needed to say something for my sisters in France. And I thought the transition between what you're doing for women in Bradford was perfect.
Definitely. Inshallah, may Allah make it easy for our sisters, all our Muslim sisters out there. Definitely.
Jazakallah khairan, Awais. Thank you so much, Awais, my brother. This was a super nice I learned so much stuff in this conversation, sharing your experiences, insight, advice with everyone. Honestly, thank you so much for being here today with me outside of your work time. Thank you so much, my brother. May Allah bless you.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much for having me, Shaheen. And it was a pleasure, honestly. Thank you so much.
I love Awais. People from Bradford show some love to my brother.
Thank you so much. Take care of yourself, Shaheen.
Thank you so much. Guys, just one last thing. If you want to seek advice, Awais is very busy, but he has very kindly accepted. I will attach the LinkedIn of his profile on the description of the episode. So if you want to get in touch, he would love to. It's been a pleasure to have you all on the show today. Assalamu alaikum, Awais, and assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Wa alaikum salam.
That's all for today's episode, guys. We hope you enjoyed it and learned something new. If you have any feedback or suggestion for future episodes, please reach out to us on our social media channels. And don't forget, please, to subscribe, rate and review our show on your favorite podcast platform. This would really help us a lot. Until next time, well, stay inspired, stay curious, and keep changing the game.